I'll call the city council special meeting and work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Lamore,
Present.
Felder,
Here.
Whitman,
Excused.
Steelgrave, Vining,
Excused.
Germaine,
Excused.
Mayor Clark.
Present. So, Mr. Pastu, we have a work session first with some items, and I think you passed some materials out. So if we want to start there, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. First, I would like to just talk about the downtown parking. You should have a spreadsheet in front of you with downtown parking revenues. And staff has been looking at potential changes or recommendations related to the traffic control orders in the downtown area. Those involved with reviewing that have been Public Safety Director Tolstead, myself, Clerk Lavoie, City Engineer Patrick Lewis, and Annette Knoll, our DDA coordinator. And part of it is there's two aspects to it. One being the master plan had recommended removal of parking meters, and that's probably been 4 or 5 years ago that that plan came out. But clearly, there's been a change in the parking demand in downtown Monroe. If you take into consideration a number of factors that have changed that, I think we would all recognize that the merger with Michigan or Monroe Bank and Trust and First Merchants had a dramatic impact on the employment in the downtown and certainly reduced the parking demand with that. Another business that has seen a pretty steep reduction in its employment would have been North Monroe News on the west end of downtown. And then certainly the pandemic came about, and that had a dramatic effect. And I'll walk through a little bit of the spreadsheet that you'll see what a dramatic effect that had. The other aspect of it is just the manner in which business is conducted. If you look at the court, they are now going more and more to electronic filings, not requiring staff and attorneys and their staff to come down and file items. A lot of it's done electronically. Use of video for hearings have increased significantly, again, reducing the demand for parking downtown with people coming down. And even internally, in our case, you can see that there's been a change in the manner of business being conducted. Our cloud service that we have for payment for utilities is about half of the payments that we now receive in just a course of not even, I don't think, 2 years that it's been implemented. And we've also noticed a significant rise in the use of the Dropbox as well. So as a result, with the parking demand is just not what it used to be for a number of these factors. And then take into consideration that more people are working from home. And a lot of the businesses downtown still have folks would be working from home as well. So a combination of all those things, and I'll walk through the spreadsheets with you. The top item there is the meter revenues that I clearly misspelled, but you can see that the trend was pretty stable 2018, 19, and continuing pretty much through January, February, March of 2020, and then COVID hits. And you can see the numbers, particularly those first couple of months when everything was shut down, how they plummeted. You saw a little recovery, but certainly not anywhere near the magnitude that previously existed. And then 2021, you can see a kind of a continuation of that as well. So, I do think, and in many of those cases, we did cover up some of those parking meters with that, and really did not incur what I would think a clamor for parking availability or anything like that. And then you look at the number of citation revenues by year. It includes, those that exceeded the meter time, and not surprisingly, that there's a corresponding relationship between the revenue generated and essentially the fines associated with that. And then you can see the 1 hour parking. This is a very interesting one, and we'll come back and chat about it in just a moment, but you can see what the 1 hour parking violation dollar amounts were. And the data that came from the clerk's office does have availability of the number of citations and actually all of the types of sites. I just pulled out what looked to be in the downtown area. But in that 1 hour parking, you can see where the numbers were for 18 and 19. And then clearly it dropped in 2020. Well, we're back in enforcement. You can see that that number is back to close to where it was pre-pandemic. And that's keep that in mind when we chat a little bit further. And then the 2 hour parking, which is pretty much on the fringes of from the core downtown area, have been in decline as well. So as a result of our discussion, this amongst the staff, we're going to be recommending that we eliminate all of the parking meters and basically monitor how how it functions going afterwards. We would be more focused on time limited parking. We're not probably looking at any changes on Front Street, both east and west, but or South Monroe between Front and Second. But on the perimeter, we're probably moving those to 2 hour parking time frames, and candidly just monitor how it works. Now would be a good time. Clerk Lavoie will, and the other thing that came with it, there's 12 permits that she was able to identify that would have been for downtown parking, a substantial reduction from where it was years and years ago. And so now would be the time because those are usually issued effective the 1st of July. So, we present this to you, not looking for any specific action, but tonight, but just wanted to let you know that we would we would provide some more detail regarding the traffic control orders that would be necessary to initiate that, such as the removal of the metered parking and in its place the time limited parking that would go with that.
Brian?
Thank you, Your Honor. Vince, are validations involved in any of this? Because we have a validation program, the DMBN does. Just wondering how that affected any of this money-wise.
Well, that's hard to say. I'm not sure if we keep a running total on the number of validations or not, but we wouldn't propose any changes associated with the validation program at this point in time. It would mostly affect those in the 1 hour time period along Front Street and in the South Monroe. You have a number of validations?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
No, but there would still be a need for the validation program because we would still have timed parking downtown. So that would still.
Well, my question is that number is not in here. So in other words,
Nope.
this is not subtracting validations off of that. So in other words, this isn't a true number.
It
Would that be
reflects
accurate?
the true number this is how much revenue was collected as a result of these.
So this is post validations then?
Includes,
Okay.
I mean, it runs consistent with the validation plan that has been out there for quite some time, so.
Yeah, this is what you're left with in terms of collecting revenue after,
Validations.
after validation, or, somebody comes in and appeals it with the police.
Right.
Any of those things come off of it. This is what's been tracked through the system for what was actually collected.
Thank you.
So the proposal then eventually is going to become remove all metered parking from the downtown and transition that into time-limited parking of
Correct.
some sort,
Yep.
TBD on what that's going to be. So the entire top half of the revenue section gets wiped out.
It would.
And because it's decreased by 75% over the last 4 years because of the pandemic and other factors,
Correct.
it sometimes costs us more chasing those dollars than.
And that's
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
That is certainly part of the consideration.
Yeah. We are still going to have some sort of enforcement present because obviously the citations for people overstaying the time allowed by the parking space is going to be
Right.
present,
Yep.
of course. And then I know it's not on the sheet. I would like to see 2022 numbers. I know that we just hired a parking enforcement officer that seems to be doing a heck of a job. As you said, because a lot of this is a result of the pandemic, I'd like to see how much these numbers have increased over the past months.
Yep.
Um,
I smile because I ran out of time to ask for those.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the
So-
same reasons you identified as well.
Right.
But we can provide that.
Right. But I mean, so far it seems like the proposal is making sense, but obviously we are, I mean, some of that, that 21,000 figure then is going to be transitioned to revenue that we get on the citation side instead of just the meter side, of course. But that's a chunk of change that we're then losing to be able to better enforce our parking strategy and pay for the staff that does that. So
Correct.
that's a consideration.
Yeah, we've
as well.
had, I think, maybe Director Tolstead could help me, but we've always used to have 2 full-time enforcement officers, and now we just have 1 at this point.
Yeah, it's been some time, but we have had to.
So,
Okay.
If-
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done, I'm sorry. There has been an uptick in activity at our counter, for instance, for the downtown parking passes since the new parking enforcement officer has been in place. But even that, we're nowhere near scaling the mountain again, so to speak. She came in, we had an influx of people wanting parking permits, and we're at, I think, about 20 for the year. And at our peak, so during my time here anyway, the highest we got to was 69 or 70. So you see, we still have a lot, and we still have a lot of people downtown who should be buying parking passes and weren't. And that's the other piece of this, is we talked about the parking permit program and making modifications with that, like you said, and just kind of starting over, because it's become a bit of a problem in terms of implementation as well. You've got a bunch of people who don't want to do it, or they want to take advantage of the program, and it's simply because, and I don't want to be misquoted here, but they're just, they want to come, they want to go to work, they want to do their jobs, they don't want to have to worry about parking permits, and does this permit let me park here, and does this permit let me park here, and if I park there, that person's parked there all day, and this person and I got a ticket, and that sort of thing. So there is I think some benefit to drawing a line, utilizing the study that we had commissioned, and implementing some of those pieces. We saw real positive results when we took it on Macomb Street, and bagged those meters, and we found that exactly what the study told us would happen happened. People turned those spots over. They didn't overstay their welcome. We didn't do a lot of ticketing. According to Annette, it worked beautifully. So we're hoping that we're hoping that the experts and what they think should happen, since it happened on Macomb Street, we're also hoping it happens other places as well. The biggest activity comes from our parking lot right here. That's the most contentious game in town in terms of parking spots.
Which is my question, Vince. Man, I might have missed it earlier when you started, but the meters that are outside, are they staying here in this parking lot?
the intent is when the parking lot is done later this year, that we're looking at putting a kiosk that would be conveniently located for anyone doing business at City Hall or entering the county. So it'll be right in that plaza area. And so that would be the only area that we'd still utilize, metered parking. And yet I would suspect that's probably our biggest area for revenue generation. So
Right.
we don't at this point in time. I think as I was just looking at some of the data, it looked like there was becoming more and more focused on, where the revenues are coming from, which meters, that type. We're just not there yet. But I do think that's helpful from a management standpoint to have that data.
Sounds good. Other question, Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Vince. You caught my next question. Regarding, where these revenues are made, I know that we've issued, or the traffic committee has reviewed closing meters in the past in certain areas that have not performed well, where the revenues from those areas were not worth policing those areas. So is there will we in the future, through the help of our data team, have like a heat map of where the parking revenues are coming from? And then a follow-up to the clerk's point on the downtown parking passes, is any revenue from that listed here as well?
This is not in that revenue that you have here. No.
Okay.
Yep. So, I think with that, and you look at a number of different maps and data points, and I'm trying to remember, I think actually where the citations are issued are now in a data point, aren't they, for us to the concentration?
With the,
Yep. I'm sorry.
Mayor, Director Chad Tolson, Public Safety Department, they are in the data point. Clerk Lamore can probably speak to it even better than I can, but the way the tickets are issued now, you'll be able to see how many tickets are issued, what kind of tickets are being issued, and where they're being issued at with the new system that we just implemented, I think, May 20th, is I think when we implemented that, done correct, Clerk?
Well, last week
Roughly.
a week or two ago. You know, it all goes so fast. It does go fast. But in the last 2 weeks, and we're getting used to the system. Director Tolstead is correct. We should be able to produce reports here in-house using that system and be able to get some additional data. All of the historical data to our,
All of the historical data, to our knowledge, was pulled over, so we'd also have the most recent along with the history of it.
And then we have the information for citations, obviously. Do we have the information for meter revenue as well?
We do not.
No, we don't tag it on the way in on what meter
No,
it came
that,
from.
that we've not, determined how much is collected at specific meters. I think there was an exercise for a while when we bagged the ones over on West Second, is that, okay, you're generating $20 every 3 weeks. Is it worth it? But we don't have what that individual revenue generation by meter and time.
That was a particular case we
yes.
were paying attention to. That's not something
Yeah.
we do system-wide.
So what was the term Ms. Knowles used was, we have a historic downtown and historic parking meters. They don't provide that level of information that you would have with these new parking kiosks.
Thank you, Director Tolstead. If we were to see data on this, it seems like the city manager would like to see it as well. Could we just be presented with the updated figures and any data that we have giving us some granularity on those numbers? It seems probably a positive thing, but it's a big decision. Essentially, you're going to offer free parking in almost the entire city then.
Yep.
So,
Very much, yep.
all right. Thank you, sir.
All right, going forward with this, again, with the information that will, supplemental information that we'll provide, but we'll also start working on developing traffic control orders for council to consider to go toward the implementation. Next item, Your Honor, if I may proceed, is Director Tolsted's going to talk about a couple items, one being the proposed fire pumper purchase, as well as AED replacements for the police department. There's a handout that he's run copies of, should be in front of you, Mr. Tolsted.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council, Rick Roy. What you have in front of you is the same documentation as what I have in front of myself. So what we're proposing is to replace our current engine 3. Our current engine 3 is at the end of its service life, which, doing research and talking to different companies online, talking with the NFPA, is about 20 to 25 years is the average service life. Our current engine 3 also is built on a commercial cabin chassis, and that's significant because those chassis are not built to hold the weight of the water that's put into engines. So that also wears down the engines faster, and due to the age of it, it also includes a lack of a turning radius, lack of storage on the engine. So the lack of storage is significant, because what fire service was 25 years ago isn't what it is today. What the fire service is being called upon to perform today isn't what it was 25 years ago. We now are involved for extrication, ice rescue, and all these things have to have a place to go. So current engine 3 is currently just in the cabin, and if you know about in an accident, what you don't want is loose objects inside the truck, and some of these are very heavy objects as well. So this engine 3 also doesn't come with a roll cage, which makes it less safe. So by replacing the engine, you get to update some of the stability controls. We got increased scene lighting. We got increased storage, improved warning lights and visibility. The recommendation is to stay with one. And the reason why we would like to stay with our E1 for this engine as well as our current ladder truck and our current engine 2 is also E1. The fire staff, the mechanics for the fire department are all satisfied with E1 and the performance of this product. I personally and the fire staff are also satisfied with the vendor, West Shore Fire, who provides service to the engines as they are now. So the current lead time to build a new engine is roughly 19 months. So at the end of that 19 months, if we would propose and purchase this engine tomorrow, do a purchase order, it would arrive right about the time when engine 3 is 25-year service life would be ending. So what the locking that price in now does is it locks in that price of that engine. And to give you some of the idea of some of the price increases we've seen in that, and I spoke with the salesperson who was I'm sorry.
But that's better. I hate to have you let. We'll keep working on it. I apologize.
Okay, I'll lean in closer and speak a little louder. So where I was at, unless we need to start all over again, was that the 19-month lead time for an engine. So biannually, what they see is price increases of these engines between 6 and 10%. So talking with West Shore Fire, who's a vendor for E1, said at the end of May, they expect this engine to go up 6 to 7%. So at 7% increase, you would see an increase of this engine at about $47,000. So I looked back at when the last engine was approved, which is in 2017, so that would be engine 2. Engine 3 would basically be the same engine. And the reason why you'd want things to be the same, so when we're operating on fire scenes, we're not having to relearn where stuff is on trucks because they're configured differently. So we would build essentially the same truck. So if you look at what we built in 2017, engine 2 for was $474,000. In just 5 years, that same engine has increased in price of over $200,000. So once the purchase order would be completed for such an engine, it locks in that price. So 19 months later, there is no more price increases. It locks in that price of where we're at now. So at the end, when the new truck, if we were to get the new truck, what would we do with our current engine 3? Engine 3 then would go, that current engine 3 would go out of service. And speaking with Mr. Pastu and city engineer Patrick Lewis, what we normally would do is seek a third-party vendor to then sell that truck. West Shore Fire, talking with them, they offered a whopping $5,000 for the current truck, which we think we can do better on the open market than them. So what it also provides too is getting a new engine is it saves the life of some of our other trucks because we can start putting our other trucks in rotation. Currently, engine 3 operates as an as-needed basis because of its age. So as other trucks need service, they go down for a short amount of time. Engine 3 is then placed in the service. With the new engine, new pumper, we start rotating these engines around, which increases the service life of those engines. And I think that's all I have. If anybody has any questions regarding?
So if I may, Your Honor, just a couple of items is the intent would be to bring this back to City Council at the next meeting on May 16th, requesting authorization to purchase. And again, it gets it in the queue. I think we had this programmed, if I remember right, for the fiscal year 2025, 24, 25 budget year. So this would come in just maybe a smidge early if it holds the 19 month time frame, but even that's been a moving target in the recent past here. So the other thing I just want to have, if Mr. Sell would come up and just explain a little bit about the encumbrance that would be required. So we're making an obligation, not spending it, but we do have to show it on our, it'll have effect on our financial statement.
Mr. Sell.
Hello, everybody. Honorable Mayor, City Council, Ed Sells, Assistant City Manager, Finance Director. So what we would do, when anything we purchase that the City Council approves, we end up doing a purchase order for and encumbering the funds so that, when this truck comes in 2 years down the road, we don't have to decide where we're going to get the money for to pay for it. So basically deciding right now what to do with it. And there had been some discussion about using some of our American Rescue Plan Act federal funds that we have available to us. But that going sole source like is recommended here doesn't really work with the federal funding program. There's some specific procurement requirements there that really require competition and require open bid. So if we're just looking at going sole source with this, then that doesn't really work. So we did have some funds for the that we want to
Carnes.
switch around here a little bit. We had some funds in our capital project fund that we had set aside for the Father Carnes Park project, which is partially funded by the ARPA funds. So the plan is to take that $500,000 that was budgeted in the capital projects fund for the park project and move that to the fire truck, and then funding a larger amount of the park project out of the ARPA funds. And that's the way we can free up the money and not have to go through the federal bid project. The price is a little bit higher than that. You know, we have $500,000 set aside. 680 something is what I heard. But so there's a little bit of a gap there, but we do have money set aside in the capital project fund to be able to cover that, cover the funds from there. So when the fact sheet was to come to you to purchase this, it'll be to encumber the funds from the capital projects fund and allow the finance director to amend the budget so that the park project is funded through ARPA and this project is funded directly from the capital project.
Questions from council? Brian?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ed, is this basically a formality, just basically because you can't just take more ARPA funds to push towards the fire truck, or?
It's really not about funds available for the fire truck. I mean, we could fund it from ARPA, but it's about the federal procurement requirements that come along with purchasing from that funding source. So if we want, like I said, if we want to buy sole source, we really can't the ARPA. We have to use another source of funding. So that's what it's more about than allocating more ARPA funds to it.
So we cannot use ARPA funds directly towards the fire truck? Am I correct in assuming that, or?
Under ARPA, a fire truck would be an eligible purchase. I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
I'm just saying in order for us to actually use those ARPA funds and any federal funds, there's requirements that come along with it, strings attached, you might say. And one of the requirements that would come along with this fire truck is that you take sealed bids, you put a set of specifications out there that any fire truck company could bid on. You basically go through the sealed bid process. And if we're committed to going with this one particular brand, it doesn't seem to make much sense to do that. We also don't have time to do that before the 7% increase comes into play on the price of the fire truck that has apparently come in next year. So it's really just moving money around to fit our schedule and our needs at this point. Thanks.
So as Director Tolstad presented, he kind of, he stated that, of course, doing the review, the particular type of apparatus, pumper, but also the company to be able to do it that way, we'd have to use, ARPA funds won't allow it just in that fashion.
So basically, we have to get other bids, and if we wanted to use it, they'd have to be the lowest bidder in order to use ARPA funds. Is that correct in saying that?
No, the ARPA funds just require open competition. So just because somebody comes in and a low bid doesn't mean you have to take that bid, but you have to, you really just have to go through the formal bidding process. That's what's required. Of the federal procurement requirements is opened up so that others have
Right.
a shot at it.
Other questions? I guess for, maybe it's for Director Tolsted, I know that, Mr. Sells, you both spoke to that, the 7% increase, and I think there's a timeline with that, as you found out as you started doing this research.
Yes, Your Honor. Speaking with West Shore Fire, the vendor, they anticipate at the end of the month will be a 6 to 7% increase at the end of May. Another reason why we're here for you tonight, because we knew this increase was coming. But they expect biannual increases yearly. So you look at the 19 months that you could face, we could look at 2 minimum, probably 3, possibly 4 increases during that 19 month period.
Thank you. Brian?
So basically, they're going to hold this price for the term of however long it takes to build this truck, correct?
Correct. Once
Okay.
once the purchase order is made, that locks in the price.
Yeah, I totally understand it because knowing the paper industry like I'm dealing with it right now, we're going up monthly on our prices, and it's not small. It's 10, 20, 15% increases, which is, in my opinion, it's ridiculous, but that's just the way things are going throughout the whole cycle right now. So this is totally understandable as to what we have here.
Andrew?
So I'll ask my due diligence question. I understand we're not taking this to a public bid because we like the brand. We have an existing relationship with the company. $680,000 for a pumper truck. Are we seeing, and again, I understand that we're not doing an open bid process, but is everyone else sort of in the same ballpark? I'm not going to go look at another company and figure out that I can buy a similar piece of equipment for $400,000.
Yeah, I talked with Chief White, and he's originally started this project for CIP and talked with other vendors but other firemen as well, and vetted this out, that you can find out trucks on either end of it. There's more expensive ones, and there's ones that are much cheaper than this one.
But in terms of the specifications that are in the range of what we're asking for, this is really consistent across the board?
Correct, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Vince, anything else from us?
Now with this item, next one is, other than if council, unless there's any other questions with that, the intent would be to have this on the May 16th agenda for council authorization.
Okay.
Next,
Next item, Monroe, Mayor, City Council. Item number 2, I'm sorry, that's my item 2. You're not, item number 3 is the ED replacement for the police department. We are not looking for additional funds from the city to purchase these, but it is a large expenditure, which requires council approval. So you'll see, I provide you with a quote from Ally for the sum of $21,574.81. And this would replace all the AEDs within the patrol cars. The current model that we have is no longer being manufactured, which means it cannot be repaired. We're having difficulties finding supplies such as pads for them, the batteries, cases, etc. So again, we're not asking for additional funds on this. We're just looking for the future placed on the May 16th for approval to make this large purchase to replace the AEDs, which has become a standard in the police industry to have those available to the office.
Questions? Okay. I think that's it. Vince?
I know we have a closed session item, but also, I don't know if now's the time, or if you want to save it till when we start the regular meeting related to items that we'll have to remove from the agenda, tonight's regular meeting agenda.
Well, maybe we could do it now. I think since we're chatting, because you kind of go through, we did the work session items before we go into closed session. Why don't we do that now?
Okay. So I guess going through this tonight, if everyone's got a copy or can look at the regular meeting agenda, item 35, dealing with the traffic committee minutes and traffic control orders, that can have council action. The next two items, 3516 and 3537, the sub-area plan change order, as well as the next item being the budget amendment transfer from the general fund to CDBG. That requires at least 5 affirmative votes to approve a budget action. The water department inventory, we'll pull that item and bring that back for the water meter replacement program that's ongoing. City council can do the item 3533, which is the appointments to boards and commissions. And then when you get to council action, item 3536 regarding the city attorney renewal retainer, that will have to get pulled, as will item 3534, which is the former Lazy Boy site redevelopment, the contract for daylighting of the Mason Run drain. And then the last item is just authorization for code enforcement legal action that you can actually take action on. So, Mr. City Attorney, did I miss something?
No concerns from my perspective. That appears an accurate recitation.
So Vince, I just want to go over them again so we get it correct in our motion. So under the motion would be under the consent agenda, that items number 3516, 3537, and 3531 be pulled from the agenda.
Great.
And then also in a motion, the items under the council action, item 3536 and 3534 be removed from the agenda, correct?
That would be correct.
So we just go back through these just so for those here, but also it's for those that may be watching. So if we go back to the consent agenda item, just some more information. For instance, the first one, the sub-area plan change order. Well, that amount generally allows the manager to make those kind of expenditures under what you're allowed, but it's because it's tied to a larger contract and a larger amount is why it needs to be pulled, correct?
And we didn't encumber enough to cover this, so.
Right. Okay. And the next one is since it's a budget amendment, when we pass budget items, they require 5 affirmative votes. Okay. Or at least 5 people to start, and then it has to be 5 to pass. And the last one, same thing as really the contract, correct?
Purchase, yep.
And I'll just go down through the main 2 in the council action. Obviously, the attorney's renewal retainer agreement is a contract. And then the last one is a contract with the Lazy Boy redevelopment. So
That's correct.
okay, I'll see if there's any questions from council members. I don't see any. So we'll when we come back for our regular meeting after we get done with the special meeting here in work session. When we get to the approval of the regular agenda, we'll need a motion and a second to make sure we take those actions. Clerk, did I miss anything?
No, that's
Seems to be everything.
Okay. So Vince, with that, do you,
Next item would be a closed session to review attorney-client privilege correspondence.
need a motion?
Your Honor, I make a motion that we go into closed executive session to review attorney-client privilege correspondence.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder, that we go into closed executive session to review attorney-client privilege correspondence. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Lamore? Yes. Felder? Yes. Stilgrave? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes.
serious wrong with this.
Okay, well. I forgot, it did get
Excuse me?
it did get disconnected, so I don't know. And I wasn't here. And I don't know.
Okay, I think I found it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. See, it's working fine. Check, check, check.
Feels better. Okay, we're all back, so I just need a motion to go back into open session.
Motion to go back into open session?
Second.
Did you swear?
I did.
I did. Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave to go back in open session. Clerk, please.
Councilperson Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Steelgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes. And if there's no other conversation, motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Steelgrave, supported by Councilman Felder to adjourn the special meeting work session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Steelgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.